Modern banks, the Louisiana Purchase of 1803 was handled by the Francis Spring Bearing of Company of London. The first bank to begin the permanent issue of the banknotes was the Bank of England in 1695, initially handwritten and issued on the deposit or as a loan. They promised to pay the barrier to the value of the note on demand. By 1745, standardized printed notes ranging from the €20 to €1,000 were being printed. Fully printed note that didn't require the name of the payee as the cashier's signature first appeared in 1855. In the 18th century, services offered by banks increased. Clearing facilities, security, investment checks, and the overdraft protection were introduced. Checks were invented in the 1600s in England, and banks settled payments by the direct courier to the issuing bank. Around 1770, they began meeting in a central location, and by the 1800s, a dictated space was established but known as the Bankers' Clearing House. The London Clearing House used a method where each bank paid a cash to and then was paid cash of the inspector at the end of the each day. The first overdraft facilities was set up in 1728 by the Royal Banks of Scotland. The Industrial Revolution and growth international trade increased the number of the banks, especially in London. At the same time, new types of financial activities brought and the scope of banking far beyond its origin. The merchant banking families dealt in everything from the underwriting bonds to originating foreign loans. These new merchant banks facilitate trade growth, profiting from the England and emerging dominance in the seaborne shipping. Two immigrant families, Rothschild, had the bearing established merchant banking firms in London in the late 18th century and came to dominate world banking in the next century. A great impetus to the country banking came into 1797 when, with England threatened by war, the Bank of England suspended cash payments. A handful Frenchmen landed in the Pembrokeshire and causing a panic. Shortly after this incident, Parliament authorized the Bank of England and country bankers to issue notes of low domination. Chinese banking during the Qing dynasty. The private nationwide financial system in China was first developed by the Shangxi merchants with the creation of so-called draft banks. The first draft bank, Ration Chang, was created around 1823 in the Pingyao. Some large draft banks and branches in Russia, Mongolia, and Japan facilitated the international trade throughout the 19th century. The Shanxi region becomes the de facto financial centers of the Qing chain. With the fall of the Qing dynasty, the financial center gradually shifted to the Shanghai with the Western-style modern banks flourishing today. The financial centers in China today are Hong Kong, Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. Japanese banking 1868 marked the year of beginning of the Meiji government's attempts at the formulating a functioning banking system, which continued until sometime during 1881. The emulated French models. The imperial mint was began using imported machines from Britain during the early years of the Meiji period. Masayoshi Mitsukata was formulated figure of the later banking initiatives. Developments of the central bank. The Bank of the Amsterdam became the model for the functioning of the bank in the capacity of the monetary exchange and standard. The development of the central bank. An early central bank was the Sewerage Riksha Bank, established in the 1868. Although this was short-lived, the sealing of the Bank of England Charter 1694 in England in the 1690s, public funds were in short supply and were needed to finance the ongoing conflicts with the France, and in the credit of the William III government was so low in London that it was impossible for it to borrow the 1,200,000 that the government wanted in order to induce subscription to the loan, and the subscribers were to be incorporated by the name of the governor and company of the Bank of England. The bank was given exclusive positions of the government balancing and was the only limited liabilities corporation allowed to issue banknotes. The lenders would give the government cash and also issues notes against the government's bonds which can be lent against the 1.2 million was raised in 12 days. Half of this was used to rebuild the navy. The establishment of the Bank of England's model on the which most modern central banks have been based on was devised by Charles Montagu, first Earl and Halifax in the 1694 to the plan which had been proposed by William Paterson for 3 years before but had not been acted upon. The proposed a loan of 1.2 million to the government in return to the subscriber who would be incorporated as the governor and the company and the Bank of England with the long-term banking privilege including the issues of notes. The Royal Charter was granted on 27th July through the passage of the Tonnage Act 1694.